Welcome to tonight's sleep story, The Sleepy Forest of Lyrian. Before we begin, take a moment to find your most comfortable position. Let your body settle into the surface beneath you, feeling fully supported, as though the earth itself is cradling you in its gentle embrace. Adjust your blankets or pillow if needed, creating a space that feels soft, warm, and perfectly your own. This is your time, a sacred pause from the day, where you can leave behind all that has passed and simply be. Let's take a few deep breaths together. Slowly inhale through your nose, allowing the air to flow smoothly, filling your chest and belly with a soft, nurturing energy. Then exhale gently through your mouth, as though releasing a whisper. With each exhale, let your body relax a little more, softening your shoulders, loosening your jaw, and letting your limbs grow heavy. Imagine each breath carrying you further into calm, like a gentle tide pulling you closer to the shore of rest. If your mind begins to wander, let it drift freely, like leaves floating on a still stream. There's no need to hold on to anything now. Just let your thoughts pass by without judgment. Turn your focus instead to the rhythm of your breath or the soothing sound of my voice. Let yourself surrender to the peace of this moment as the story begins to carry you toward a night of deep and restful sleep. Chapter 1. Arrival in Lyrian. The soft hum came first, like a melody drifting through the air, carrying no weight but gently pulling. It was faint, like the memory of a lullaby, and Callen's tired steps faltered as his ears strained to catch the sound. The dirt path beneath him gave way to something softer, moss, perhaps, springy and cool under his worn boots. He paused and took a slow, deliberate breath. The air here was different, fresher, tinged with the faint scent of lavender and something sweeter, like honey dripping from combs. The atmosphere seemed to welcome him, offering no questions, no urgency, just calm. Callen had been walking for days, maybe weeks. Time had blurred into a stream of heavy moments, but here on this path, surrounded by towering trees, their leaves shimmering faintly as though kissed by moonlight, he felt the weight in his chest begin to lift. A breeze stirred, carrying the hum closer, weaving through the branches above. The trees seemed to breathe along with it, their movements synchronized like a choir swaying in harmony. The sound wasn't loud, just enough to draw him forward, step by gentle step. The moss beneath Callen's feet cushioned each step, its texture soft, almost velvety. He knelt down, pressing a hand into the green surface. It sprang back gently as though alive. Around him, the trunks of ancient trees rose impossibly high, their bark patterned in ripples that seemed to shimmer as the light shifted. The air was filled with subtle sounds, the faint rustle of leaves, the distant bubbling of a stream. A glowbird flitted past, a tiny, luminous creature that left a trail of golden light. Callen watched it disappear into the shadows, a faint smile forming as the gentle scents of earth and lavender filled his senses. As you continue along, the hum seemed to say, you'll find what you need. Gradually, Callen's steps brought him to the edge of a small brook. Water danced over smooth stones, creating a melody as it flowed. Kneeling, he dipped his hand into the stream. The coolness was perfect, invigorating yet soothing. The stream began to whisper as Callen sat back, his hands resting in the moss. It spoke not with words, but with feelings. A story of gentle rains and tranquil skies, of roots reaching deep and branches stretching wide. He closed his eyes, letting the whispers carry him deeper into calm. Continuing onward, Callen entered a clearing bathed in the glow of countless tiny birds. They moved like stars caught in slow motion, their light pulsing faintly as they danced through the air. Each movement seemed to paint patterns in the twilight sky, calming in their rhythm. Callen stood still, his breathing matching the glowbirds' faint pulses. A sensation of warmth spread through him, as though the light itself had found a way inside. Chapter 2: Exploring the Forest. Callen woke slowly, though he hadn't realized he had fallen asleep. The mossy ground beneath him was softer than any bed he had known, and the faint lullabies from the trees hummed in his ears, blending seamlessly with the sound of the whispering stream nearby. Elyra was waiting. She stood a short distance away, watching a group of glowbirds weave their glowing patterns in the air. When she noticed Callen stir, she turned to him with a smile as warm as sunlight through leaves. "This is only the beginning," she said softly. "Lyrian has much to show you." Elyra guided Callen toward the stream he had rested near earlier. The water sparkled, its surface reflecting the faint light of the glowbirds. Callen noticed how its sound seemed to change depending on where he stood, soft and melodic near its shallows, deeper and more resonant by the overhanging rocks. "Listen closely," Elyra murmured. "The waters carry stories, not in words but in feelings." Callen knelt by the stream, letting the cool water flow over his fingers. As the whispers surrounded him, he felt a sense of ease, like he was listening to a long-lost lullaby. The stream's melody seemed to tell of distant rains falling gently over fields, of roots drinking deeply from the earth. His breathing slowed. The stream's song felt alive, guiding his thoughts away from his worries and into a quiet stillness. They walked on, following a winding trail that led to a meadow bathed in twilight. Here, the glowbirds moved more freely, their lights twinkling like stars in a living sky. Callen paused, transfixed. The glowbird's gentle flutters made a sound like the faintest whisper of silk brushing against leaves. Elyra gestured toward a stone bench overgrown with moss. "Sit for a while," she encouraged. As Callen settled onto the bench, the glowbirds began to dance. Their lights formed slow, swirling patterns that shifted as if responding to an unseen rhythm. Callen's eyes followed their movements, his mind emptying of thought. "Each glowbird carries a spark of Lyrian's magic," Elyra said softly. "Their light doesn't just illuminate, it calms." Callen watched, feeling warmth spread through him, as though the light itself seeped into his chest. Their journey led them to a clearing where a still, circular pool lay surrounded by tall, silvery reeds. The water shimmered faintly, mirroring the soft light of the trees overhead. Callen knelt by the edge, captivated by the clarity of the pool. It was as if the water had no depth, only reflections, his own face, the glowbirds above, and the endless canopy of Lyrian stretching high. "This pool reflects more than just images," Elyra said, kneeling beside him. "It reflects feelings, what lies beneath the surface of the heart." Callen gazed into the water, the ripples spreading slowly as his fingers brushed the surface. As he watched, the image of himself seemed to shift. He saw a version of himself that was lighter, freer, unburdened. "It's beautiful," he whispered. "It's you," Elyra replied gently. As twilight deepened, they approached a massive oak tree at the center of Lyrian. Its roots spread wide, weaving into the ground like a tapestry. Its bark seemed to shimmer with its own inner light, and the faint hum Callen had followed earlier emanated from deep within its trunk. "This is the heart of Lyrian," Elyra said. "Everything begins and ends here." She placed a hand on the bark, and the hum grew louder, resonating through the clearing. Callen placed his hand beside hers, and a sudden wave of calm coursed through him. The sensation was almost overwhelming, like being embraced by the forest itself. "Stay here as long as you need," Elyra said, her voice quiet and steady. "The oak will hold you." Callen closed his eyes, his hand still pressed to the bark. The hum seemed to match the rhythm of his own heartbeat, steady and reassuring. He felt himself letting go, not just of the tension in his shoulders, but of the deeper burdens he had carried for so long. Time seemed to blur. The forest's sounds and lights became one, blending into a soothing harmony. And as Callen sank deeper into peace, he wondered if this was what it felt like to truly rest. Chapter 3: A Shadow Stirs. The glow of the forest seemed softer today, dimmer. Callen couldn't be sure if it was his imagination, but the hum of the trees, always so steady and reassuring, carried a faint, discordant note. He stood in the meadow of glowbirds, watching their light flicker less brightly, their once fluid movements now hesitant. Elyra appeared beside him, her usual calm tinged with something heavier. "The forest reflects what lives within it," she said, her voice quieter than before. "And something within Lyrian is waking that should remain asleep." They walked to the grove of humming trees, their deep melodies no longer in harmony. The songs carried faint edges of sharpness now, like an instrument just slightly out of tune. Elyra placed a hand on one of the trees, her eyes narrowing as if listening intently. "The forest is unsettled," she murmured. "An old sorrow stirs beneath the roots, carried by the visitors who come here seeking peace. Lyrian has always absorbed those sorrows, transforming them into calm. But if too much remains, it can awaken something." Callen furrowed his brow. "Awaken what?" "A shadow," Elyra replied, the echo of despair. When they returned to the stream, Callen noticed the water's song had shifted. It no longer whispered gentle tales of rain and roots, but something darker, heavier, like distant thunder. He knelt beside it, dipping his fingers into the water, and was startled by the chill that met his skin. The stream began to speak again, not in whispers of peace, but in words of unease. It told of burdens left untended, sorrows too heavy for the forest to carry alone. Elyra's voice interrupted the stream's murmurs. The echo feeds on what is left behind, the grief that visitors carry but do not release. She knelt beside Callen, her hand brushing the water. It twists Lyrian's magic, turning harmony into discord. As they moved deeper into the forest, the glowbirds swirled overhead, their movements no longer smooth and serene. They darted erratically, their light flickering like dimming stars. Callen watched them, his chest tightening. "They're afraid," he said. Elyra nodded. "The echo's presence touches all of Lyrian. The glowbirds feel it too, though they cannot leave. They are part of the forest's magic." Her voice softened, but the weight of her words pressed against Callen's thoughts. "We must find where the echo stirs and calm it before its influence spreads further." They returned to the ancient oak at the forest's center. This time the tree's glow was faint, its bark cooler to the touch. The hum that had once resonated so deeply with Callen now carried an uneasy vibration, like a chord held just a beat too long. Elyra placed her hands against the trunk, her eyes closing in concentration. "The echo is not fully awake yet," she said, her voice strained. "But its presence grows stronger. It lingers in the spaces left by sorrow, feeding quietly until it cannot be ignored." Callen stepped closer, his hand brushing the bark. He felt a faint pulse beneath his fingers, a rhythm too slow, too heavy. "What can we do?" he asked. Elyra opened her eyes, her gaze steady but shadowed by worry. "We must remind the echo of the forest's purpose. Lyrian is not a place of forgetting but of release. Together we must guide it back into rest." Elyra led Callen back toward the meadow. "The forest's magic grows stronger when those who walk its paths contribute to its harmony. You are not alone in this." Mira and Jorin were already waiting when they arrived, both looking uneasy but determined. Mira's usual calm had given way to nervous energy, her hands twisting the edge of her cloak. Jorin stood stiffly, his face set in a frown, but his eyes betrayed the worry he tried to hide. Elyra addressed them all, her voice steady. "The echo feeds on the sorrows we carry, but Lyrian's magic can transform sorrow into peace if we allow it. Each of you has a role to play." She looked to Callen. "You've felt the forest's touch. You know how it can heal. Trust it, Together, they moved through the forest, Elyra guiding them to places where Lyrian's magic faltered. At each site, the murmuring stream, the humming trees, and the silver pool, they worked to restore balance. Mira sang softly, her voice weaving through the discordant melodies of the trees. Jorin sat beside the stream, his hands resting in the cool water, his breathing matching its uneven flow until it steadied. Callen stood at the silver pool, his reflection rippling as he let his thoughts quiet, focusing only on the warmth of the light above. Though the forest began to steady, the faint shadow of the echo lingered, its presence subtle but persistent. Elyra's face remained calm, but her eyes betrayed the weight of the task ahead. "The heart of the echo lies deeper," she said quietly. "We must go further, into Lyrian's oldest and most hidden places." As they prepared to journey deeper, The glowbirds began to return, their light faint but steady. The forest's hum softened, its melodies tentative, but no longer discordant. For the first time in hours, Callen felt a faint spark of hope, but beneath it all, the echo waited. Chapter 4. Facing the Echo. The deeper they ventured into Lyrian, the more the forest seemed to change. The familiar softness of the mossy ground gave way to textures less inviting. Damp roots that stretched like veins across the earth, their surfaces slick and cold. The glowbirds, usually bright and comforting, now hovered farther away, their light dim as if hesitant to follow. The hum of the trees became faint, almost inaudible, replaced by a low, distant vibration. It wasn't the gentle harmony Callen had grown used to, but something deeper and heavier, like a drumbeat slowed to an unnatural rhythm. "This is where the echo lingers," Elyra said softly. Her voice, though calm, carried a note of urgency. "It gathers where sorrow is strongest." They entered a grove unlike any other part of Lyrian. The trees here were gnarled and twisted, their branches forming jagged arches overhead. The air was cooler, almost icy, and carried a scent of damp earth and something faintly metallic. At the center of the grove lay a hollow, a sunken space where the roots of the trees converged into a wide, dark pool. The surface of the pool didn't reflect the canopy above. Instead, it rippled with faint shadows that seemed to move independently of the still air. Elyra stepped forward, her silver hair catching what little light remained. This is the heart of the echo's presence. It's not fully awake, but its influence is strongest here. We must calm it before it stirs further. As the group gathered around the hollow, Callen felt it, a faint pull, like a whisper brushing the edge of his thoughts. It wasn't a voice, but a feeling, heavy and cold, pressing against his chest. The others seemed to feel it too. Mira clutched the edge of her cloak tightly, her breath quickening. Jorin stood rigid, his fists clenched at his sides. Only Elyra remained steady, though her expression was grave. "The echo doesn't speak," Elyra explained. "It doesn't need to. It feeds on what we bring here. Our doubts, our grief, our fears. It grows when we hold on to these things instead of letting them go." Her gaze moved over the group. "This is where Lyrian's magic must work through you. You must release what you've carried so the forest can transform it into peace." Elyra began to hum softly, her melody weaving into the faint hum of the distant trees. It was a calming sound, steady and reassuring, like the first rays of sunlight breaking through a dark sky. Mira stepped forward first, her movements hesitant but determined. She knelt beside the hollow and closed her eyes. "I've carried this for so long," she whispered. "It's time to let it go." As she spoke, the water in the pool began to ripple, faint threads of light appearing on its surface. Mira's voice faltered as tears slid down her cheeks, but her breathing slowed, and the tension in her shoulders eased. Jorin followed, his steps heavy. He stood by the hollow, staring into its depths. "I thought holding on to the guilt would make me better," he said, his voice rough. "But it's only made me smaller." He knelt, his hand brushing the edge of the pool. The light grew brighter, spreading across the surface. The shadows rippled, shifting uneasily as the forest's hum grew stronger. Callen hesitated, his chest tightening as he approached the hollow. He could feel the weight of his grief more keenly now, as though the echo was amplifying it, holding it up like a mirror. Elyra's voice reached him, gentle and steady. "Lyrian has brought you here for a reason, Callen. Trust the forest. Trust yourself." Taking a deep breath, Callen knelt beside the pool. The surface seemed to pulse beneath his gaze, shadows and light weaving together in a slow, deliberate rhythm. He closed his eyes, allowing the memories to surface, the warmth of his family's laughter, the ache of their absence, the endless days of walking with no direction. "I don't want to carry this anymore," he whispered. As the words left him, the light in the pool flared, pushing back the shadows. The hum of the forest grew louder, no longer distant but surrounding them, filling the grove with a powerful resonance. The shadows in the pool writhed, resisting the growing light. The echo's presence thickened, pressing against them like a wave. But Elyra stepped forward, her voice rising in a song that matched the forest's hum. Her melody was ancient and soothing, carrying the essence of Lyrian itself. The glowbirds returned, their light piercing the darkness of the grove. The trees began to sway gently, their branches humming in harmony with Elyra's song. The light from the pool surged upward, washing over the grove. The shadows recoiled, folding in on themselves until the hollow was still. The low vibration faded, replaced by the soft, familiar hum of the forest. Elyra turned to the group, her voice quiet but firm. "The echo is at rest, for now." The grove transformed. The gnarled trees straightened, their bark smoothing and glowing faintly. The cool air warmed, carrying the scent of lavender and honey once more. Callen stood, his chest feeling lighter than it had in years. Mira and Jorin exchanged quiet glances, their faces calm, their shoulders unburdened. Elyra smiled softly, though her eyes held a flicker of weariness. "You've done well," she said, "but Lyrian's work is never truly finished. Peace must be tended just like the forest." The group stood in silence, the hum of the trees enveloping them like a gentle embrace. And for the first time in a long time, Callen felt not just calm, but whole. Chapter 5. Renewal and Departure. The grove was quiet now, its once twisted branches aglow with soft light. Callen stood beneath the ancient oak with Elyra, Mira, and Jorin, all of them bathed in the forest's renewed harmony. The echo was no longer a shadow pressing on their hearts, but a faint memory, lulled back into slumber by the forest's magic. The air around them carried a different hum now, lighter and more melodic. The lullabies of the trees were clearer, their harmonies weaving together as if celebrating the forest's restored balance. "Lyrian feels whole again," Elyra said softly, her gaze sweeping over the grove. "And so do you." As they left the grove, the glowbirds returned in full force. They flew in slow, sweeping arcs, their trails of light illuminating the path ahead. Callen watched them, his heart lighter with every step. "The forest has a way of carrying you forward," Mira said as she walked beside him. Her voice was calm, her earlier nervousness replaced with quiet resolve. Even after you leave, you'll feel it." Jorin nodded. His usual stoicism softened. "It doesn't take away what we've been through, but it teaches you how to carry it differently." Callen smiled faintly, his gaze lifting to the glowbirds. "I think I understand that now." They paused at the silver pool, its surface shimmering under the faint twilight. Mira knelt beside it, her fingers brushing the water. It rippled gently, mirroring the calm in her expression. "I think I'll remember this place forever," she murmured. Jorin stood beside her, his reflection in the pool steady and clear. "It's strange. I thought I'd feel the weight again when we left the grove, but it's gone." Elyra approached, her presence as soothing as the water's soft light. "It isn't gone, it's been transformed. That is Lyrian's gift to all who come here." Callen knelt beside the pool, gazing at his reflection. It no longer seemed heavy with sorrow. Instead, he saw himself as he was now, whole, steady, and at peace. The meadow of glowbirds marked the final stretch of their journey through Lyrian. The gentle hum of the trees grew softer, as if the forest itself was bidding them goodbye. Elyra stopped at the meadow's edge, her silver hair catching the faint glow of the twilight. "This is where we part," she said, her voice carrying no sadness, only calm. Mira and Jorin turned to her, gratitude clear in their expressions. "Thank you," Mira said, "for everything." Jorin gave a quiet nod. "You've given us more than peace. You've given us ourselves again." Callen hesitated, his gaze lingering on Elyra. "Will we ever be able to return?" Her smile was soft but knowing. "Lyrian is always with you. Its magic isn't in the forest alone, but in how you carry its peace forward into the world." The path beyond the meadow stretched outward, winding through gentle hills bathed in faint light. Callen walked alongside Mira and Jorin, the forest fading behind them, but its presence still palpable. For the first time in years, Callen felt no urgency, no weight pressing him forward. The rhythm of his steps matched the faint memory of the forest's hum, a melody that would stay with him always. Mira turned to him, a soft smile on her lips. "Where will you go now?" Callen shrugged, his expression thoughtful. "I'm not sure, but it doesn't feel like I need to know. For now, I'll just walk." Jorin chuckled quietly. "That's not a bad plan." The glow of Lyrian lingered on the horizon as the three of them walked into the distance, their steps steady, their hearts light. The final scene returns to Lyrian. The forest hums softly, its melodies mingling with the gentle rustle of leaves and the faint murmurs of the whispering stream. Glowbirds drift lazily through the twilight, their light fading and swelling like the rhythm of a slow breath. Elyra stands beneath the ancient oak, her hand resting on its bark. The hum deepens as she closes her eyes, her voice blending with the forest in a lullaby that stretches outward, calming all who hear it. The sounds of the forest grow quieter, each element fading in turn. The trees hum, the streams whispers, the faint flutter of glowbird wings, until only a soft, steady silence remains. And then, even that fades.